So thou, O son of man, I have set thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Therefore, thou shalt hear the word of my mouth, and warn them from me.
Have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them.
Coming to you from an undisclosed location in Middle Tennessee and examining current events from a biblical perspective, this is Bible News Radio with your hosts, Randall and Stacy Harp.
Okay, hey everybody. Want to welcome you to today's episode of Bible News Radio. We have a very, very cool guest today. I'm going to tell you, if my mom was still living, she would totally be on this show, just so you know. She would, just saying. I don't know how many of you were alive in the 70s when my guest's dad was like at his height of popularity, but I was actually 2 in 1970, and then I got a little bit older as the years went on, but I do remember the songs. I do remember a couple of them, and the only reason, just so you guys know, the only reason I am not going to play any of his music on this show is because Facebook will delete the show if I do it, which is really a bummer because YouTube won't, neither will Spreaker, neither will Periscope. None of them will delete it, but Facebook has all these copyright issues, and they hear a song that I am not allowed to play, they remove my show. So, just so you know, I wanted to let you know that ahead of time. I want to welcome some of you guys coming in. If you're on Facebook, don't forget to say hi. You got to put a comment so I can see who you are, and then I can say hi. Those of you guys on Periscope, Mia, Liz, Melanie, Stephen, Dottie, and others that are in there that I can't see all of you, but thank you guys for coming in and sharing this out. I hope that you do that. I just hope you do, because I think this is going to be good. Okay, also, let me tell you that if you're one of the people listening to the archives on our iTunes channel, just, feel free to email me, let me know that you heard the show, and you have a bunch of his records. Yeah, I bet you do. Hey, Freddy Fender, he was the guy. I'm just saying, he was the man, and all that. Can we mute Facebook during the song if you played it? I don't think so. Because the last time we played a song, they killed the show. They went, you're dead. But anyway, it is Facebook, and we're here. So anyway, so you guys, if you want to hear Freddy Fender songs, all you got to do is go to YouTube. You can pull it up. You can buy his music on Amazon. And you can get the book that we're going to talk about today on Amazon. So let me tell you a little bit about Tammy. Tammy is his daughter, Tammy Lorraine Huerta Fender. I think I said it close to right. Is his daughter, and this is the description of the book. I want you guys to hear this right up front. The title of the book is Wasted Days and Wasted Nights, a Meteoric Rise to Stardom. I thought the music just cut out all of a sudden. Good job, Bareface. All right, here's what the book said. Over on Amazon, this is what it says. It says, "Just let me sing. These are the prophetic words of Freddy Fender, who rose from an impoverished background in South Texas to achieve international superstardom as a rock and country singer during the 1970s. For the millions of fans worldwide who have loved Freddy, this book offers an in-depth exploration of Freddy's personal and professional life, from his hard-scrabble childhood to his raucous early years, leading to his explosion onto the world stage as a one-of-a-kind performer. The life story of Freddy Fender is the first of a 2-volume publication, which will tell the story of this singular entertainer." Written by Freddy's daughter, Tammy Lorraine Huerta Fender, the book conveys in rich detail what Freddy went through to succeed. The book also reveals the painful truth behind that success and how the misery of substance abuse tore both him and his family apart. Freddy's journey to redemption forms the heart of this biography, as does his faith in a higher power, which we know is the Lord. Frank, uncompromising, and bold, this book is the definitive work on the life and legacy of Freddy Fender as told as no other could tell. There you go, people. I did it. I read it. All right. So anyway, I am honored and privileged to have his daughter Tammy with us here for at least the next half hour. We'll see. We'll just see. So anyway, Tammy, I want to welcome you to the show. Thank you for being our guest today.
Hello, thank you, Stacy, for having me.
Well, I am super honored, and when I got the email pitch about your dad, I actually remembered that song, "Wasted Days and Wasted Nights." I remember it because my mom loved country music. She loved rock type country music, and it's music today. I mean, it's music like from the past that I love, that I can hear the words, and I know I there's a story, and I just love that. And I like the other one is my next teardrop falls. Is that the name of that one?
Yes, that was the first hit, major hit.
Before the next teardrop falls, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit first about you. Tell me a little bit about you.
I live in the Houston area. My family lives down south in Corpus, and I was married here. I have no children. I decided to go back to college at my older age, and so I'm a psychology major, and I graduate this year, and I'd love to go to law school next year. So I'm going to, try and pass those LSATs and hopefully go to UT. So that's my goal. That's my dream. But just something happened to me when Father died. I was there at the funeral service, and Governor Perry was there, and we got letters from George W. Bush, and which we're very grateful to him because it was him that helped Father get a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, even though Father deserved that, way before, but it was the people here that pushed that for him to get, and so we're grateful to them, to the Bush family, and my condolences, of course. So something happened when I was there at the funeral service to me. It's like I felt this anger, like something was just not resolved, something unfinished, and the people were just walking away like is this it? Is that it? I mean, of the big Freddy Fender, I mean, who has has he had kidney transplant, liver transplant. I mean, he had so many. He served time in prison. He must have hit all these jails, so many jails in different cities in California, everywhere. I mean, he was out because of his lifestyle, his fast lifestyle of drinking and doing drugs, or just having a fast life, and he was a rebel, but it was just something told me that. It just made me do it. Something made me put everything that I had, all my anger, all my sorrow, my pain, my love, my joy, my memories, the flashbacks that you get, when you're, experience, a loss or trauma, something overwhelming. And it just took me. And so that's when I began to just start doing an outline. And no one told me how to write, or, as a matter of fact, I didn't even finish school. I went to the 10th grade, and my mother pulled me out of there. And this is the first time I'm saying this in public, because I was, little surfer girl, beachcomber, and I was starting to, be wild like Father, and drink and drug, and just I was getting lost in the shuffle. And our lifestyle was just so fast. I mean, it was just so fast because Freddie really, the media, the agents, they pushed him to be on TV, to be a celebrity. They put him on every TV show you can imagine during the daytime. I don't know how many times he was on Johnny Carson, and then all the daytime shows, and I know David Letterman loved him, and Jay Leno. But, it's just I would see him work, and it got to the point that Father wouldn't come home for few months because he was all over the world. He was just all over the world, and Asia, Africa, everywhere. I mean, so sometimes we'd have to go to Los Angeles. So we can see him at Burbank Studios with Johnny Carson, the Donna Shore Show. So I got to meet all these celebrities from Star Wars, R2D2, these just big celebrities, and I talk about it in the book. And even Johnny Carson, I was in the backstage with him, and I had some conversation there with him, and I was a teenager. And but that's what we had to do if we wanted to see my dad, is to be over there, because then at night he had to sing. So it's almost like he had two different jobs: daytime TV and then nighttime concert. And so that's the way he lived. It was just faster, and in high demand. And I do talk about one of the moments there that I was in the limo, and I remember, my mom got off to get my dad's rhinestone suits, because back then they really dressed you up like a real megastar, not like today, but it was just, I don't know, it was just, you were just bigger than life back then, and his outfits were just awesome, and then they had the bell bottom look too, right? So and then I remember her getting off the limo, and I was talking to the limo driver, and he wanted, because I remember I had a crush on one of the singers. I think it was Tony DeFranco, and he said, well, I can introduce you to him. He lives over here. And I was, oh, really? Well, then the next thing I know, on the radio, I remember they announced that Elvis was had just passed away, and but I just, what came to my mind was that, oh, wow, I just heard Dad and his entourage that they're going to try and get Dad with Elvis Presley so they can meet and then maybe do some songs together. And then I heard it, and I remember that's what came to my mind, and that was just 2 weeks prior. And then when I heard that when he passed, and there was something in the paper magazine, they found a lot of my dad's 8-track tapes all over his coffee table of Freddy Fender. And isn't that awesome? So and then we also had this one lady said that she used to email us a lot and say she used to go on the buses with, because she was the wife of one of the band members, and say that every time that Elvis got in the bus, that he would say, put it on. And so some of them would get upset because all he wanted to hear was Freddy Fender. So, I mean, that was very nice, so I don't know, it just took me there. But I guess what I'm just trying to say is that our life was very busy, and all these flashbacks just kept coming, and I it just took me. And so this is, I wrote 40 chapters, and I even went to the extension of interviews, sleeping in cars, going to nursing homes, and interviewing the elderly that knew my father was a child, and then some of the biggest agents that worked with my dad. So they're all in this book, and they're telling you what they saw when they first saw Freddie, and how they made him into a meteoric star that night in Las Vegas. So anyway, so I divided the book into two. And I would like to read you my preface, if it's okay with you, Stacy, and the introduction, so that it'll shed light what's really going to happen. Yes. Because this is not just a biography. This is raw life.
Yeah, I wanna ask you a question, though. One of my guests here in the Periscope is asking, did your dad meet Merle Haggard?
Yes, he used to send my dad cowboy boots at the house. So yes. Very cool. I wish I would have gotten an interview from him, because he, and even Charlie Daniels and all those guys. I mean, the thing with Freddie is there was no boundaries with Freddie. So he had jazz, B.B. King, he knew all the Aaron Neville, and then he had all the rock stars, and then country, because Freddie did it all. So that was pretty neat.
Wow. Yeah, go ahead and we would love go ahead and read the beginning there that you wanted to read. I think this is very important. Okay, everybody listen. This is Tammy. She's talking about her dad, Freddy Fender, and this is the beginning of her book.
Okay, the preface. With a distinctive voice and melody, Freddy Fender sang and bared his soul to us. His intellect encompassed the arts of culture, world history, and music. With a natural appeal and interest in people, he mastered the social science of communication across the globe. Father attempted to write his life story at various times without success. He would start talking about the most enchanting and picturesque place he had ever seen. While reminiscing, he would reflect upon his teenage years, recording memories of his hometown on paper and audio. However, on each attempt, he would quickly come to a dead halt. Then, like the comic superhero, The Flash, Freddy would take off riding like the wind on his motorcycle, trying to recapture his youth in an old world he had left behind. Freddie grew up in a majestic place and era. It was a place where time stood still for him. Before making his famous mark here and around the world, he would notoriously brand his birthplace. He concocted a beautiful world of fascination and fantasy, one that transcended the hard reality of his childhood. Father's hometown is a simple place, one where life made sense and was worth living. While traveling down south off US 77 onto Highway 83, one could easily miss this minute town with just the blink of an eye. It was as though Freddie was born from a deep-seated, well-rooted branch that allowed him to shoot up of the raw, uncooked stories of his life in the magical Rio Grande Valley shaped and captivated Freddie. It bred a catalyst for his unquenchable thirst for greater adventure. Freddie would take that journey to the unknown, yet remain true to his roots, promising to stay grounded and virtuous and return home someday. Father struggled in his efforts to keep writing. Upon witnessing this, I assisted him by drawing a diagram of a brainstorming technique that I learned from my English professor back in college. Not long after this, I observed that he had attempted to continue his bio while using this effective technique. However, Father must have concluded that life was much more invigorating and valuable to him than writing about it, as I noticed his efforts had only covered his early to adolescent years as a child migrant worker. After Father's passing, he would not let me be. I found many others who felt the same way. He would speak to them in their dreams as though he was still running the show. It was not until 10 days later, on a Tuesday, that I felt his passing as I walked into my home while holding my groceries. Father had finally left us and gone on to another plane. I never really understood what the word plane or dimension meant, nor was I ever comfortable using this kind of terminology until now. I felt it in my chest, just like an air pocket being sucked out of me. It was a jolt, his spirit leaving this world. Father's death had punched a colossal hole into our hearts. Millions of fans worldwide kept writing in his website guest book, paralyzed and anxiously waiting for someone to retract the news of Freddie's death. They were hoping that perhaps it was just some malicious report transmitted by mistake. We never did say the word goodbye or tell him that he was truly dying, nor could we. Nor was I able to let him go, not quite, or even as of yet. Soon after, I came across one of his voice recordings from his memoirs. In it, he expressed a wish to write a biography titled From My Eyes by Freddy Fender. With regard to his most important achievements, I would like not to set the record straight and immortalize him through this book as it should be. Therefore, in this book, I have added multitudes of Freddy Fender's most humble and authentic quotes, which span a musical career extending nearly 60 years. Since this is the first time of our life story with Father will be revealed, I must share with you that it has weighed upon me something fierce. I deliberately went back into time and threw myself into the fires of memory as no one else in my family dared to do, except for Mother. Keep in mind, I'm just a storyteller. This is being told to you as compassionately as I best as possibly can write. The book is raw yet authentic. It's real life. So to understand my father, the man, Freddy Fender, we have to go back to the beginning. When I first began this monster of a project, I spoke spiritually with Father. I told him that he was going to have to place certain people in my path in order to make this lonely task possible for me to withstand and accomplish. Even before his death, I had mentally and emotionally detached myself. I remained disconnected from the present while thousands of electrifying flashbacks took me by force to the beginning. It was as if it were only yesterday. At the initial start of my journey, Mother handed over to me 100 or so audio cassettes of Father's in which he recounted much of his musical career. In these tapes, he spoke of music history, different genres, and multitudes of great artists who came from across the globe into the United States. He commented on how these artists had influenced our society while developing new music genres with distinct sound. After 2.5 years of extensive research and interviews, it felt right. I had more than enough insight into Freddie's personal and professional life. In piecing together his life, I discovered that his entire recording career reflected and paralleled his trials and tribulations, as it is true of most artists. In this book, I share our realities as they convey a personal message of beauty and truth. We witnessed firsthand all the dynamics that come with knowing an iconic persona. We lived with a man who was both a dreamer and a realist. Multitudes of extraordinary God-given gifts were beyond our normal human scope and comprehension. As it was the end of writing my father's biography, Mother gave me 10 more cassettes, which recorded his last few months here on Earth. The first few were phone interviews from music reporters from across the world. They were from countries in Europe as well as Mexico. They wanted to hear Freddie's last few words of wisdom. The conversation centered on the legendary artists such as Frank Sinatra, Elvis Presley, and more. For the longest time, the last of the cassettes tapes sat on my desk, as I dared not listen to them sooner than need be for fear of breaking my heart any further. I had unbearable sleepless nights, riding from dusk until dawn, while doubt and fear began to creep up and overwhelm me. This was because of the sensitive nature of the two stories that were being shared by others and me. The endless flashbacks of our lives with Father kept me up all hours of the night. They sent me running to my desk to jot down my memories of our love, our life, and what I had truly learned about him. It was as though I was not allowed to rest, nor be feared, nor live in the moment. No one understood my torment. I felt all alone. I assure you, I had no choice other than to keep writing a story that needed to be told. At last, there was an answer to my prayers. While drained and at my wits' end, I reached over late one night and grabbed hold of the remaining tapes. I began to listen to them while my husband, William, supported my relentless drive toward completion and peace at his feet. There was Father, my angel, giving me what I had needed to hear all along. No one else other than God could have eased the anguish of my pain to write a wonderful and honest-to-goodness book about my father. It was the go-ahead to proceed. It was as though he had come back from the grave, while keeping his word to me that I would never feel or be alone again, no matter what. From My Eyes by Freddy Fender. I would like them to write a book. Hopefully they will do a film on that. But I do want them to write a real book. None of this lucky, hunky-dory poor boy from the Rio Grande Valley, and he did really well, that they could root for and all that. No, I want the dark side, the bad things, about cocaine and the heroin, shooting in my veins with the bad stuff of drug issues, the penitentiary, divorcing my wife, and why and all that. I want things that were significant in my life. Again, none of that hunky-dory poor boy stuff. I would like that. I would also like to do things, but that are in the eyes of God. I don't want to be a priest or a gospel singer, but I do want him happy with what I am doing. Whoever gets to write this book, I hope it is the right one, because if one writes it another way and with just any little change, it will not hit the nail on the head. It's like a bad recording of a good song. So whoever writes this book, I just hope it's the right one. As far as for being honored, honor to you might mean a lot of things, but honor to me means that he or she would be the right one, and I would appreciate them wishing me that. I was compelled to write from the start. This book is for our family's healing, especially for my own. Even more importantly, it is also for his fans to continue his legacy, and because I promised Father I would bring this book to fruition. There are people who just shine more than others do in family. Life is not always fair. They are born lucky and are considered the chosen ones. In one way or another, their living lives are destined to be an example to others. Freddy Fender, beaten down by misfortune, failure, and social prejudice, selfishly shared his whole life openly with us. He gave wholeheartedly, without reservation, and left us with many of his genuine talents. As Freddy was busy living out his dreams, we all seemed to be living ours through his life experiences. We were merely part of his wake from the beginning to the very end. Both men and women wept when they lost their good friend Freddy Fender. Today, the people who admired him have long passed on their memories through his music and family gatherings, weddings, funerals, and such. It gave Father much solace to know that the love and compassion he gave worldwide was returned to him tenfold. This story is primarily about how Father affected and influenced our personal family life and his professional social recognition in the music world. Freddy Fender's voice transcended all music genres. His multicultural fans are evidence of his universal appeal. Freddy seized the opportunity that worldwide fame brought him. He learned about people, how they live and struggle to survive. He became part of their life, bringing them a bit of hope and joy as he expressed his compassion through what he knew best, his music. His life was enriched more than he could ever have hoped or dreamed. He visited many foreign countries, such as Africa, Australia, Denmark, Germany, Hong Kong, Ireland, Italy, Japan, Malaysia, Mexico, Netherlands, Philippines, Russia, Shanghai, Singapore, Spain, Switzerland, and Vietnam. Whenever or wherever people may remember Freddy's voice and intimate friendship shared by his family, friends, and fans, he will always live vicariously through them. This book, which is the life story of Freddy Fender's A Rise to Fame, is the first part of a two-part biography. It covers his music career until 1979 when he was in his early 40s. The sequel covers the fall and the redemption of Freddy Fender, and afterward you can read a brief and vivid description of what's to come after the rise. In view of that, that is where we shall go to be with him. We will see it through his eyes, and mine will trudge in the road toward enlightenment, acceptance, and new freedom from bondage. We shall seek peace and joy and embrace our lives once more with perhaps a brand new set of eyes. And I'll skip over to the short introduction. And here's me like 10 years ago, like just doing the outline all by myself, just like I knew what I was doing, like it was a written map for me. And the introduction. I first met Father when I was about 2.5 years old. On July 23rd, 1963, he was out on parole from DeQuincy Prison, a correctional facility on Northwest Louisiana. He arrived back in his hometown of San Benito, Texas on a trailway bus. In September of 1969, I too was born in the small town of San Benito. I came out with wild, long black hair, just like Father's. It quickly grew down to my knees. My hair covered half my face, and I had one eye peeking out, just like the character in the Addams Family television show. As a child, my family called me Cousin Hit. On the day of his arrival, I walked up to him barefooted and stood behind him as he acquainted himself with La Palomilla buddies down the street. I placed my little hands on my skinny hips, looked up at him, and said aloud, "I know who you are." At 26 years of age, Father stood there exasperated, with lackluster eyes. His spirit had been stripped away after over 1,000 wasted days and wasted nights confined to one of Louisiana's finest prisons. He turned to me, our eyes alive, staring as though we were in a Mexican standoff. I knew without a doubt that on this very day he would know exactly who I was. I did not surrender or hesitate to inform him out loud, "You're my mother." He laughed at me and told me to get lost. I guess he feared I was just another Urquiamocos and snotty-nosed kid from El Jardín, the name of our humble neighborhood. I must have sensed that this charismatic young man was related to me in some capacity. Who else would have the gall to talk to Freddy Fender like that but his own true daughter, or to blurt out an introduction such as mine? Everyone in the barrio was whispering about him because after a 3-year absence, he was the center of everyone's attention and curiosity. My elder brother, Sonny, had already seen him in prison and cried at the sight of him. Sonny and I are fair-skinned like mother. She is Spaniard. And father, well, he looked more like a Mexican bandit. While I was growing up, Father always enjoyed a good laugh and teased me about how we first met as father and daughter. The stories I tell you are neither good nor bad. They are what they are, just that, our lives. There is no black or white in this book, only shades of gray. In the beginning of life, we are surrounded by the mystical whites of purity and innocence. In the midst of our lives, there are multitudes of brilliant colors, as in a prism, shimmering all around us, giving us a path of joy and hope for tomorrow. However, for some of us, life can appear charcoal gray, pitch darkness that envelops and blinds us. It can almost seem unbearable and horrific as it engulfs us whole. At times, it may seem almost impossible to penetrate as it prevents us from seeing beyond our human scope and power. Having endured the impossible, having been tested as no other, a person must be fearless and have the purest of hearts in order to pierce through and embrace the darkest moments. A spiritual experience can arise from this, if one can only fall to one's knees and surrender with total humility. Having crossed over, the light of truth enters the center of God's eye. We can become whole and lucid. God gives us a new hope and purpose as we see everything and everyone crystal clear as never before. It is true that there is nothing to fear. At times we may feel lonely, unloved, or perhaps even scared to live or die. However, I can assure you there is no one and nothing to ever fear in this world again. God is nothing but pure love. We have the power to heal within ourselves because God is in us all. Our physical bodies, emotions, and memories are broken hearts, some old, some new, have the capacity to heal like a hardened scab that mends itself with time. God gives an unconditional love and life. I say life is for dreamers, let the dreamers dream. Now where are you going, Mother often asks me. I answer her, I've got things to do, places to go, and people to meet. I'm going to go live my life, of course. I will make you glad, sad, mad, and perhaps even judgmental as you read about our personal lives. Yet I hope you will allow yourself to feel the same love and laughter and perhaps a divine kindness toward those who have affected your life with such intensity. You too can reach the depths of your inner being and find compassion for others. With family and friends, we learn to live and let live for a new hope and a better tomorrow. We can also forgive and be forgiven. And as long as there is breath within us all, it is never too late to be loved or to be loved, all in the eyes of God. I gave you my tears, then some more tears. But they are tears of my spirited joy renewed hope and mercy. I now introduce you to my family and my father, Valdemar Garza Huerta, a.k.a. Freddy Fender. Part 1, This is the Rise.
All right. There you go.
Thank you, Stacy.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Now all you guys have an idea of the beginning of the book, and it gives you really a great background as to why Tammy wrote the book. And I don't know, do you want to stay a little bit longer, or should we just wrap it up because we're already past the bottom of the hour?
Well, I think we're good, and I just I did this for the humanity, and my father wanted me to do this. He wanted, you heard him, he wanted this to be told, and it's to help people. And you'll understand why when you get to the second book, the sequel, why. It's very intense, it's very raw, and I gave you the very best, and that was of my father and myself and my family, to tell it to you right. And I welcome you to hear about what happened to us and how God touched us. And I just want to say one last thing, that this book is all about Freddy, how he struggled with injustice, prejudice, and struggles, and yes, imprisonment and so forth. And but he achieved the great American dream. But the second book is my masterpiece, and that is what God did with Freddy. And thank you very much, Stacy.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, so where can people get the book if they want to get it?
Well, if they want a signed book, they can definitely go to my website at Tammy Lorraine Huerta.com. And they could also get another one without signing it, especially for those that live out of the United States. They need to go to TammyHuerta.com. But if you go to this one website right here, I have all that information, and they could find their way.
Okay.
And I'll have t-shirts too pretty soon. So
you're making t-shirts too?
Yeah, we have Freddy Fender t-shirts and real cute t-shirts. I'll have to upload them if I get a chance here.
Okay. Well, okay. Well, can I ask you one question before you go though? Can you share a little bit about his faith? I mean, because I know it's part of the second book, but can you share a little bit about how he became a believer, and just so that people have a little bit of an idea?
Yes. Well, my father died with 21 years of sobriety, and he walked the walk and he talked the talk, and the many things that he did to the family, to us, and to himself, he taught us eventually that we had to forgive. We had to forgive and open our hearts. He just made us change. You have to change. You can't bear that anger and the hurt feelings. The family has to heal. Everybody has to heal. And it was just easy, later it was easy for us to do that, because he really was very spiritual. And I mean, he didn't preach it. He lived it. I mean, when I walked by him, when I saw him with cancer, he didn't even take medication for cancer. For the pain. He took it all. The music is what took him, what helped him, and the praying. I could just hear him, Jesus. I could hear the prayers when I walked by him, whispering, or underneath his blanket, whispering. I mean, it's like, it was just, it really got to you. And he's the one that made us open our hearts even more. And that's why I feel the way I am today. I'll open up my heart and I forgive easy. I don't stay angry long, and it's all good, because he learned that to be closer to the image of his God, and he's advocate of God, and you also call him Jehovah, and so that is also mine. And so he led by example, and everyone was so happy.
Oh, good.
Around him, made him feel good.
Very cool. Well, you know what? Those are great lessons, and I'm very proud of you for taking the time. You told me it took you 12 years to write this book, approximately.
Well, I did it in 2.5 years research, and I really wrote it like in 2 years. But the thing is it was really one book, and it was just so much, and there was just so much editing as well. And then there's no biographies like this. Usually a biography has like 10 pictures maybe at the most, but I'm giving people like almost 800 images, because every time I say what's happening to Freddy and he's doing this and he's talking, it's a movie inside. People are talking. I'm putting his quotes to confirm it, and I'm putting an image to it, and oh my God, there it is. Sure is happening. I make him come alive, and that's what I wanted to do.
Very cool.
I wanted him to come alive for the people again because they miss him,
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to my copy, just so you know.
There you go.
And I just want to say thank you for spending your time with me, and also wish you well in the field that you plan on going into, whether it's, being a therapist or a counselor or an attorney. I know God will use you in a very special way to touch the lives of many people.
Thank you. And I want to thank you for what you do too, for helping people. That's what it's all about, is having purpose. And this gives me purpose. And I want to thank all your listeners. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
All right. Amen. All right. So we're going to go to our break, but just, because we don't have a studio, basically, if you just want to hang up, that's all I got to do. And then I can share with you the link later if you want. Okay. I think she's frozen. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, everybody. So that was Tammy Huerta Fender, Tammy Lorraine Huerta Fender. And anyway, wasn't that great? We got some behind the scenes history of one of the biggest megastars in the world at the time, Freddy Fender. And I hope that you guys, if you're interested in him as a person and his music touched you and you're interested in his life, then you can take some time to check that out. The rest of the show, we're going to be looking at some headlines of the day. I want to thank my sponsor, Ariel Ministries, though. If you guys aren't familiar with the work of Ariel Ministries, it's the ministry of Dr. Arnold Fruchtenbaum. He is a Messianic Jewish believer. He's a believer in Yeshua. He is Jewish. Dr. Arnold is. And if you go over to Ariel, you can save 20% when you use the coupon code Bible News. You can save 20% on the DVDs, on books. I think there's MP3s as well. And also this month we have a Bible study. It's the Resurrection of the Messiah free Bible study. If you go over to my website, BibleNewsRadio.com, you can go ahead and download that free. I think it's 39 pages. It's a really good Bible study, by the way. You guys should check it out for free. And also there's some DVD sets there from Messianic Rabbi Model Belston, who is still recovering. His leg is still healing. So you can keep him in prayer as well. You can see the different things there. And if there's any other topic that you guys want us to discuss, in regards to Israel and things like that, just let me know. Also, don't forget, you can sign up for our email address, at BibleNewsRadio.com. And also Bullhorn. Bullhorn is really making some strides with their mobile app here. They just did a really good update on that app. So if you're not following it yet, if you haven't downloaded it yet and followed Bible News Radio on it, check it out, because they added some chat capability. There's some now audio capability, kind of like Facebook Messenger. You can send audio messages. Now you can do that in Bullhorn. It's pretty cool. A couple of you are using it, and it's very cool. It's pretty cool. They're not officially sponsoring our show yet, but we're hoping that they will at some point. So, but check out the app there too. Hey, Marty, nice to see you. Jason, thank you for coming in. Magnus, thank you for coming in. Stephen, I'm glad that you liked the interview that we did earlier. Hi, Frankie. And Dottie, got your email earlier. And all that. So I hope that you guys check out our sponsors. Also, if you want to be a pillar of the community, check that out. That just means you help support our show, sponsor it, donate to it, if you like what we stand for. Which honestly, a lot of people don't. Just so you know, a lot of people really don't like what we stand for. But in this day and age, we're here. We're little voices crying out in the wilderness, trying to share the gospel with people as best as we can. As broken and flawed as we are. So, all right. So let's look at some headlines of the day. I actually sent out an email earlier today, and in there I posted a couple of I posted a couple of stories. I'm trying to bring it up here. Let's see here. I'm trying to find it. I know it's in here. There was one story in particular I wanted to bring up that really stood out, and for the life of me, where is it? There it is, right there.
Facebook, the bombing, or HW?
The Facebook one. I wanted to bring this out. Hi, Dave. Hi, David. Dave for Infinite One. And Larry, hi. Okay, I wanted to bring out this article here that I came across. This was on LifeSite News. And with the push with the homosexual agenda that we all know about, especially that's really happening through California, and a lot of the misinformation that's out there in the media, because the media, look, the media's goal in discussing the topic of homosexuality is to only ever show you the good side of homosexuality. And what I mean by that is not that I think homosexuality is good innately. I don't. But they never talk about the consequences of it. And they only make characters on TV good that are homosexual. They never show a sinning homosexual, just as an example. So anyway, there's this article on Facebook. It's titled, it's on LifeSite News. It's titled, For years, Facebook group allowed older gay men to exploit homeless boys for sex. And it says this: United Kingdom, a startling investigative report reveals that for years, Facebook allowed the existence of a group page where older gay men negotiated the trading of sex for shelter for young homeless men. The in-depth report issued by BuzzFeed, which isn't part of the vast right-wing conspiracy, just so you know, chronicles the plight of young men with no place to stay who surrender their safety, health, and dignity for a warm bed or a couch at night. We uncover some of the damage done to these young men, the sexual violence by landlords, and reveal how they are being enabled by two major internet companies, one of which is Facebook. The world's largest social media platform is hosting explicit posts from landlords promising housing in return for gay sex. At best, impoverished young men are seeking refuge in places where they are at risk of sexual exploitation, continues the report. At worst, teenagers are being kept in domestic prisons where all personal boundaries are breached, where their lives are in danger. By the end, it led to the darkest of places: young men raped, strangled, enslaved, and hospitalized, one with knife wounds to the neck. BuzzFeed editor Patrick Strudwig draws attention to the Facebook's glaring hypocrisy, portraying itself as an originator of the Me Too movement while permitting the exploitive gay-oriented site to remain uncensored for 4 years. The Facebook group is called Gay Houseboys and Those Who Hire Them, and describes itself as a group for gay men seeking gay boys to work for them as houseboys, and for gay houseboys seeking employment. Despite adding no nude pics and no hookup posts, its members post advertisements enticing young men to exchange sex for a place to stay. I don't think this is fake news, though. BuzzFeed News discovered the group last month as concerns peaked over Facebook's handling of the data breaches of millions of users, and as Mark Zuckerberg, its founder and CEO, told Congress his company didn't do enough to prevent it. Zuckerberg also took credit in his prepared statement for the Me Too anti-sexual violence movement, as it was organized, at least in part, on Facebook. He did so while his site continued to provide a platform, as it's done for the last 4 years, for landlords who detail the kind of sex and men they require as payment for the accommodation they are offering. The young men, many of whom are perhaps better described as boys, are seeking nothing more than a stable home life. The administrator for the Facebook group told BuzzFeed that Facebook had not stopped the explicit notices being posted. The report continued, when approached by BuzzFeed News to respond to issues relating to this group, Facebook initially replied promising that a representative would comment. That response, however, did not materialize despite several attempts by BuzzFeed News over several days to invite Facebook to do so. A week after first contacting the social media company, the group remains on its site. One young man interviewed for the story recounts a harrowing tale of years sadly bouncing from one home to the next where sex and his self-worth were traded for a place to stay. A month after he left his first sex-for-rent arrangement, latching on to the first man who showed him attention. I went for my first test after coming out and got gonorrhea and HIV. I think I would have recovered from that whole period of my life if that hadn't happened. It took him years to see himself as anything other than a commodity, according to BuzzFeed. As a result of BuzzFeed's reporting, Facebook took down the offending Facebook group page, and you can read the whole story by clicking the link, which goes over to BuzzFeed.com. And, you know, I bring this up not because I'm trying to portray the homosexual community in a negative light, but because I want to expose, as we talk about in the scripture that we highlight at the beginning of the show, the unfruitful deeds of darkness. You know, Randall and I, many years ago, it's probably been close to 16 years ago now, we attended a GLSEN conference, which is the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network. And we went to this conference. It was held in Los Angeles over a weekend. And Randall and I went in, and we went in with the intent to report on what happened at that conference. And what happened at that conference was I had a life-altering experience because, you know, I never knew that there were homosexuals and lesbians who were adults whose whole goal was to lure and attract children into the behavior of homosexuality. And that was what that conference is about. That's what the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network is all about. It's about indoctrinating children starting at very, very young ages into the lifestyle. And I have to say that I met two boys at that conference. One was Cedric, and the other one, what was the other one's name? It just escaped me.
Yeah, it just escaped me at the moment too.
It's not Andrew, is it? That doesn't sound right.
No.
Well, anyway, it doesn't matter because they're both men now. But anyway, I met these two boys, and Cedric was a black kid. The other guy was a white kid.
Ryan?
No. I don't know. It's going to drive me nuts now. I have it written down. I've said it before. Anyway. But anyway, Randall and I talked to these kids, and we said, why are you here at this event? And the white boy, he says to me, and it's going to drive me nuts, man. What was his name? Anyway, he says to me, I have a single Christian mom. I don't have a father. One day I was hanging out online on social media, and I had this older man come to me and say he wanted to meet me at the mall. And he asked if I would go ahead. Christopher, that's what his name was. Christopher and Cedric. So Christopher said to me he agreed to meet this man who was 25, I think it was, at the mall. Christopher was 16. I think he was 15 or 16. And anyway, he met this guy at the mall, and the guy took him back to a hotel room and raped him. I mean, that's what he did. Of course, Christopher reported it as he had sex with him. It was his first sexual encounter. Actually, what he did was he raped him. He got raped by this older man who pursued him on social media. And Cedric conveyed the similar story. And from that experience, because, they were looking for male companionship, these adult men, homosexuals, lured these young men. Now, I'm just going to say something. This is not uncommon in the heterosexual community as well. If you're not familiar with the Justin Berry case, Justin Berry was a young teenager who got a webcam, and he somehow got into some chat rooms with some pedophiles who were in there, and they began to groom him and a whole bunch of stuff. And it happens all the time. Adults molesting children. I don't care whether it's heterosexual or homosexual. It's bad. It's evil. It shouldn't happen. But it does happen. Problem is we talk about it in the heterosexual community, but it's not legal or acceptable, politically correct to talk about it in the homosexual community. But they pray. They prey on these kids. And if anybody says anything to the contrary, then we're painted as some type of, bigot or hater. And the truth is, it's anything but. It's the farthest thing from the truth. As somebody myself who was groomed as a little kid by a pedophile, I take child abuse of any form very, very seriously. Nobody protected me, not one person. And throughout I could tell you, if I ever decided to write a book about my life, I could account numerous times where adults knew what was going on with me and not one person stood up for me. Not one. So I'm just going to say that, I went on Google on Fox News in 2006, 12 years ago. I was exposing the man-boy pedophile sites that were on Google's platform back then, on TV and that are on the internet. And you know what? It's a hard thing. I mean, it's hard to fight this issue because it's a huge giant, and there's so few Davids, or Deborahs that are out there trying to, take it down. But you know what? I just want to leave you with one thing today. I want you to know that if you feel like helping one person doesn't make a difference, then just know that that's not true. You know what? There's this old story, and it was, I don't even know who said it, but it's basically a person walking along on a beach, and the starfish are washed up on the shore. And if you go ahead and you pick up one of those starfishes and you throw it back into the water, you've saved that one. It matters to that one, right? You never know whose life you're going to touch. Gladys Walker was the school counselor at my school, La Sierra High School, in the early 80s when I turned my uncle in. I will never forget her. She was the first person that took what I had to say seriously. She was mandated, obviously, by the state of California to call the police, and she did. And Jesus is the one that saved me. He isn't the one that didn't protect me. He saved me from it. And he saved me from a lot more that could have happened to me. Because if he didn't come into my life, who knows if I would even be here. And for people who think that God wasn't there or he didn't do anything, here's my exhortation to this. It isn't God's problem. It's mankind's problem. Man allows this to take place. Man does it to man. God doesn't do it. That, anybody who blames God for their abuse, you have a very distorted view of who God is, because that's not the God of Scripture. The God of Scripture is compassionate, loving, slow to anger. He loves us. He loves us. He sent Jesus to die for us in our place, because we're all sinners, right? Every single one of us is, but he allows things to take place. But the devil, he doesn't ever get blamed, but the devil is real. He's the one that takes care of stuff, and mankind is the one that creates the problem. It's not him. So, you know what? That's my show for today. I have a very heavy heart for many reasons. And I would just say this, if the things of God that grieve God's heart don't grieve your heart, then your heart isn't broken enough. So I would encourage you to consider that in your time of prayer. Because you know what, you guys, this life is fleeting. Freddy Fender's daughter, she basically did a testimony here to her dad. His life was fleeting, and yours is too. You don't know when you're going to die. So I just hope that you're right with God. Just make yourself right with him. Because you know what? He's the only God that will never betray you or abandon you or leave you. He really does love you. More than you know. More than you know. So, I will be back tomorrow, hopefully feeling a little bit better. I should probably say be bold, stand up and go with God because he loves you. You know that? He really does love you. So just know that.